Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Market Check brought to you by BP. A reminder, as always, guys, that there is no second best daily YouTube live stream to talk about these markets. Welcome, guys. Welcome. Another Red Monday, another day we're going to be talking about this range, the direction we think it's going to end up resolving, and of course, everything in between. This is more of the same, though. From what we've gotten used to over the last few months. I'm Snorlax, guys. You also know me as Tommy. I'm joined by Max and the Dr. Will's Outlook. We'll see if we get Jackus on stream later for you guys as well. Hope you all had a fantastic weekend. I always say, spend some time away from charts, however you need to relax and take your mind off of it. I never know if you guys actually do that. I mean, it's difficult for me, for one. But either way, guys, before we can start cooking, before we can start sharing all of the alpha that we've been pondering on over the last few days, I always say Monday shows are the best because we've all just kind of been stirring on what we want to talk about for multiple days. But I'm going to ask you guys to smash that like button for us. We always appreciate when you do that, of course. And as I will continually say, the growth of this channel could not have been possible without you guys, the audience, being here each and every single day and hitting that like button for us. So let's talk about the markets, guys, because it is another Red Monday or a Red Sunday, whatever you want to call it. Market is not taking a risk on slant here to start the week. We do have moisturized Jackus in the building with us right now. Welcome, Jackus. But yeah, it's a market that has once again bled to range lows. Will it materialize to anything more than that? Obviously, that still remains to be seen, but this is a big level for Bitcoin, right? The rangers might have been correct. We are back down at range lows. Will we rotate back up to the highs, of course, or are we going to potentially break down and see an extended correction? Something that I think we've been kind of entertaining a bit more, but obviously we were hoping on, 63, 64, 65 even to hold as that higher low level. So Bitcoin is showing a bit more weakness than maybe we expected, but you look over in the equity markets. Let's look at the ES today. The S&P is green today, guys. And I say that even though NVIDIA has been not double digit, but red by 2 or 3% or more for 3 sessions in a row. So you kind of have an interesting profile across the board with this market, right? You have crypto showing some weakness. You have the dollar, which in my opinion is still showing tremendous amounts of weakness. And then over in equities, I mean, you don't have strength, but you don't have weakness either. So, like I said, a very interesting profile here for crypto to be selling off on a Monday. We're going to talk about it. Of course, we're going to talk about altcoins, which, I mean, some of them are holding up okay, but most of them, let's be honest, they have broken their structures. Some more notably, like WIF, showing a pretty strong level of weakness, but of course, others like Pepe and Mog. And a few other on-chain assets showing tremendous amounts of strength as well. But yeah, guys, I'm not going to ramble too long. Obviously, we've got a lot of volatility to start the week. It's not the first time that we've had a lot of volatility on a Monday or Tuesday over the last few months, but here we are again. I'm definitely curious how you guys are interpreting this dip so far, especially given how much Bitcoin has puked relative to kind of where we expected that higher low to get carved out. So what are we seeing in the markets right now? And what are we thinking about the dump? Not just on Bitcoin, right? But of course, also these altcoin markets as well.
Hello, Snorlax. Hello, everybody. Yeah, the market's at it's at a really important level right now. When I look at this chart, I look at it and go, well, ideally, we would have probably held somewhere around this would have been more ideal for me, truthfully. I would say at this point, there's nothing necessarily like wrong with this, right? Like we are in a giant range. However, it could get sour quickly if we lose it, right? So clear range low. This was a really solid deviation. Range low, in my opinion, clear cut range high. And I guess you could tighten it up, and we could throw a mid range on there as well. Actually, I think I will do that. I'm pretty sure. Just pop that on quick. Like we've got some really clearly defined levels, right? Like mid range. Look at the clean interaction, right? So right now we're at range low. Does it make sense to capitulate into range low? I mean, look, guys, like it's typically not a winning strategy to, get super, super bullish at a multi-month range high. And also on the flip side of that, get super bearish at a multi-month range low. But this is a big level. There is no overstating the significance of this level. I guess it's possible, we could be in for some. I mean, it's certainly possible we could be in for like, this region down here. Like that wouldn't be at this point, it wouldn't be that surprising. That would be because it's an obvious range low, right? So one more stab down. So maybe it's something like this, and then you reclaim and you try to do something like this. That wouldn't surprise me, right? But this level is big because if you lose this level, if you lose this range low, and I'm hopeful that we won't, I'm cautiously optimistic that we won't, then you probably do something like this, right? And you reject here, and then this would probably be like a bearish order block or something like this, we'd probably see this. And then you'd probably come up right here, and at a minimum, you would sweep this low, right? If you were to lose this and we continue down, then you lose this low. And then you just kind of hope that like this gets reclaimed, and we basically see some like mega bullish RSI divergence at this level, and then you move up. That's kind of what you pray for, right? But we don't want to entertain that yet, right? Because we're at support. You don't want to capitulate into support. I guess unless you're really convicted that something like this is going to happen. But I would say at this point, I'm not really in that camp. There's a lot of contradiction that I'm seeing in the market right now. Obviously, I'm really focused on like high time frame positioning. I haven't been trading perps in. I mean, it's probably been at least half a year since I've done any like active trading. I'm more focused on like high time frame positioning. Um, but I'm seeing some contradiction, right? Like I look at ETH BTC and I say to myself, when have we seen? I'll delete this. This is from an old drawing set. In my opinion, we just saw um we just saw ETH BTC put in like a high time frame pivot or like swing low. Like this should be our global bottom, ideally. I think there's a case to be made for it. When have we ever seen ETH BTC basically put in a high time frame swing low or pivot low and a global top be in? Typically, ETH BTC marking a bottom or a reversal, it marks the like kind of the early innings of alt season rather than, hey, it's time to get out of the market. So I'm seeing some contradiction, right? Like if ETH BTC had spent the past 3 or 4 months like up here and we were kind of starting to like roll over, I would say, okay, like market top might be in. It might be. But it'd be very strange to see a high time frame top for Bitcoin put in with ETH BTC, in my opinion, looking like it's ready to rip, right? And this is, it's something like this, right? Maybe we go from like, this level instead. I don't, you know, something like this. But in my opinion, this compression looks like it's ready to break upwards. And when ETH BTC breaks upwards, we don't typically see the market about to nuke, right? I mean, maybe temporarily you could get a local correction, but I mean, let me put Bitcoin down below here, and I'll just kind of show you on the higher time frames what I'm talking about. So here's Bitcoin down below, ETH BTC is up top. All right. Let's move it up just so we've got ample room to work with so you guys can see everything. Here's ETH BTC. Here's Bitcoin USD. So if we mark out like high time frame pivots for when ETH BTC really began to move up, like, so let's mark out like our deviations and our despair zone. In my opinion, and I'll mark them out in red. These are your deviations. These are your like despair zones, right down in here. We'll tighten that up a little bit. This is when ETH BTC is like just done, right? Like this is when everybody's emotionally capitulating and they're like, ETH is dead against Bitcoin. It's over for altcoins. You know, this is that region, right? This is your deep value. And in my opinion, we were just in deep value. So again, ETH BTC up top, Bitcoin down below. If in fact this is what just happened, right? And we're somewhere kind of in these regions and we're about to start moving up, let's mark this out, right? This is what's typically happened for Bitcoin following the exit of the despair zone. All right. Typically, it's actually been the start of some very prosperous times. So I'm seeing some contradictions in the market right now. So I look at this chart and I go, what the heck? Like Bitcoin should in theory be just kind of starting its bull market. Now there's been some chop, right? Like it doesn't look like much because we're ultra zoomed out, but like this was choppy, really choppy in 2016, 2017. Additionally, right here in 2020, really choppy, right? Bitcoin went up to like 12.5K and then nuked back down sub 10K. That was egregious. That happened after ETH BTC left the despair zone. Additionally, if this was our despair zone, ETH BTC is moving up. You know, Bitcoin went from 70 now down to 60. That's a lot of turbulence, right? So it's not uncommon to see a little bit of turbulence as ETH BTC is leaving the despair zone before we see some pretty prosperous times. So I'm actually going to make a video with a few more examples of this later today, but I'm a little confused because Bitcoin looks heavy. It certainly it looks heavy, it feels heavy. Range low is not fun, but at the same time, you know, we are at support, and ETH BTC is telling me an entirely different story. So I don't know. I mean, truthfully, I'm a bit uneasy, right? Because I'm not seeing it so clear. I'm seeing one ticker, one component within crypto telling me that it's ultra bullish risk on, and I'm seeing Bitcoin, the king, who needs to be respected, telling me something is wrong, right? Or something feels off right now. So I don't know. I feel a little bit uneasy. Most of my portfolio is in altcoins, right? And there actually are some altcoins that are holding up really well despite Bitcoin looking really weak. So I'm not sure. You know, it's Monday. You know, maybe a Monday dump is for fading, just like sometimes a Monday pump is for fading. We'll see how the rest of this week resolves. But I believe funding was negative this morning. Maybe it still is. If we get a positive news catalyst, maybe there's a big squeeze coming. I don't know, but I mean, truthfully, guys, I'm seeing a lot of I'm seeing too many contradictions across the board right now between certain altcoins looking strong, you know, altcoin indexes looking, you know, stronger, certain metrics that I watch, you know, and then in confluence with like the NASDAQ looking strong, SPX looking strong. To see Bitcoin doing this is a little bit confusing to me because I feel as though we're on the cusp of alt season, but Bitcoin's going to have to do something here soon. So I don't know. I went on for a bit, but that's just my honest thoughts is like I'm seeing some contradictions and I feel uneasy about it, right? It's not so clear to me right now, but we are at support, right? So it's like, do you really want to get bearish into high time frame support? This support goes all the way back to February is when we first reached up here, March 1st, February 29th, right? Is June 24th. This is support. This has been support for 116 days. Is it oftentimes a winning strategy to short 116-day mega support?
Mega support.
Yeah, you guys like when I say mega demand, but I mean I don't know. I wouldn't want to short this, right? I would probably rather wait for this level to be lost
short
and
it
hope
all.
we get a retest like this if we are gonna nuke. But I wouldn't short into it, truthfully. But yeah, go ahead, Will.
Net worth short, max leverage as high as you can get it. Just net worth short everything. Okay. This is the market we live in. If you're done with the chart, I don't want to cut you off. You can finish cooking.
No, you're good. If you got something to share, go ahead.
I do.
You have a chart up?
Yes, and for the love of God, the war discussion. I just absolutely fucking hate getting into this discussion with people. It's mind-boggling. All you got to do is do a little Google investigation. You can figure this out. War is historically always bullish for markets. Period. You might get a slight knee-jerk reaction within the first 24 to 48 hours, but then price only goes up from there. And I have data because I have to provide data because people won't go Google it. They'll just say I'm wrong.
And by the way, Will, we saw that in April, right? When conflicts in the Middle East were ramping up. It was a weekend. It was like a Saturday or a Sunday. Markets nuked when that war escalated in the Middle East. And they did kind of recover off of that, right? Especially something like Pepe. I remember like Pepe nuked like 60% and then just recovered off that low. But sorry, keep going.
Correct. Yeah. And I think like if you're smart about it and you can catch it within that 24 to 48 hour window, then it might be a good play. But I think if you're not, which I think 99.99 in infinite nines % of people are not, they're going to try and sell and buy that news and get absolutely obliterated when it recovers and goes way higher. So if you look here, capital market performance during times of war. Let's go over it a little bit. Return risk, 10% was your return. Your risk was 19%. All wars, 11.4% return and 12.8. Now keep in mind, this is on large caps. This is not small caps or mid caps, which also saw actually decent returns, right? In every single major war, every single one. You saw major returns in every single one of them. Again, I have more data up here, right? And it tells you exactly what I stated. In the first 24 hours, you get negative price action. Look how small that negative price action is. It's so tiny, it's not even funny. It's so tiny. Look at this, 0.7%, 0.3%, 0.1%. The market doesn't give a shit about your wars. It doesn't care. It bids wars. So if you're saying the war is the reason for this whole thing to come down, you're absolutely on the wrong side of this trade. You're absolutely on the wrong side of this trade. And I saw people keep pointing out 2022. 2022 was a pandemic. We have to know our history. It wasn't about the war. It was about the pandemic. That's what it was, whether people want to believe that or not. So, again, this is every war. Look, Iranian general killed in an airstrike. Saudi Arabia. I mean, I don't have every single little tiny war, right? Every little freaking ground assault, but bombing of Syria, right? Boston Marathon, London subway, Madrid, U.S. terrorist attacks, Iraq's invasion. I can go on for days, right? Your negative price action on the one day was 1.2. Your total drawdown was 5%. That was the most you got for drawdown was 5% on your total, on all your wars combined. So the war, it's no bueno. It's not worth entertaining. The data doesn't support entertaining wars ever being negative for a price action. So keep that in mind when you're discussing war. You can see right here, days to recovery 41, 36, 18, 15, 4, 20, 31. This one right here took the longest, 189. That was Kuwait. 2 days to recover right here from the Reagan shooting, right? 2 days. 6 days here. 57, 65, 2 days, 41, 1 day, 18, 4, 4, 82, and Pearl Harbor was 307. Obviously, Pearl Harbor was a major attack on the U.S. I don't see anybody attacking the U.S. If you can foresee that, hey, you are a genius. But I don't see that happening. So take it with a grain of salt, right? Take it with a grain of salt. It's not about confidence. It's about data. That's what it's about. I mean, this is data. That's what I'm providing. I'm providing you data. That's it. It's not confidence at all. Like, I mean, I guess it is confidence in a sense in numbers. If you think 4 + 4 = 8, then I guess that's confidence. But if you think it's another number, more power to you, right?
War is always bullish, but I will say the uncertainty that forms kind of before you get clarity on the war situation is what markets hate the most. Markets hate uncertainty. As if the certainty is war, markets will rebound quickly, obviously, and they'll move, kind of in accordance with positioning and obviously geopolitical factors. But markets hate uncertainty. Even if you believe that, okay, they'd eventually print money during COVID, obviously the market continued to tank for multiple days before it actually got that clarity, that certainty that QE was coming. So I think that's something to consider as well. The uncertainty's kind of just been more or less continuously bubbling over the last few months. I'm not like in the camp that war is going to necessarily nuke the market, but if it were to create a situation where we have a lot more uncertainty, then I don't think there's a scenario where the markets enjoy that at all.
Yeah, the reason that I brought up war, just for the audience's sake, who are maybe fresh to the show and not in our Giga chat, it was a discussion in our Giga chat with some of our Giga chads, and they were like, "Hey, what do you think about the war?" And I was like, "Never worry about war." I was like, "It's an irrelevant factor when it comes to markets. I mean, knee jerk you might get, right, but ultimately it's not something worth entertaining because the price action rebounds so freaking fast you won't even know it even happened in most cases." I mean, look how fast Russia bounced back after getting demoed on the ruble. Took them 30 days, 30 days, and they were right back where they started. And that was with the entire world sanctioning them. Like, think about that. Like, you can't. War historically, it's countries start wars to reignite economies. I think people don't understand that. I mean, just take a little history class, you'll understand how that works. What do you do in war? You make bullets, you make guns, you make missiles, you make tanks, you make airplanes. This ignites economies. It gets them going. And that's the reason why we're discussing it. And for the audience's sake, I see some people in the crowd saying, "Didn't he say we wouldn't go below 65?" I said, no, I didn't think we would go below 65. I didn't say we would not go below 65. I said the way the trend is setting, the setting of the trend stated that we should hold 65, but obviously we didn't. So now we have to entertain lower pricing, and we have to look at where we're at in the chart. And I think, like, if we look where we are in the chart, price itself is sitting at 61, right? Sitting at 61. So if you're right, congratulations. Go get a gumball. Have a nice day. I think ultimately you were bidding against the market, and you're going to continue to do this while the market is in an uptrend. You're going to eventually get wrecked doing this. So looking at price here, we discussed it this morning in the Giga chat on the weekly time frame. You need to, again, always look at price from the perspective of strength, right? So I will insulted us, then insulted us now. Yeah, okay. Sentence structure is difficult. But I will say this. Freeman guy, man. This guy, seriously. Nice JPEG, by the way. Anyways.
He couldn't help himself. He was trying to not attack the audience, and it just built up, and he just had to do it.
Anyways, moving back into the chart. You're arrogant. You hurt my feelings. Oh my gosh. All right, man. I'll get you a tampon later. Looking at price here, right, from a structural standpoint, price came back down. Price retesting the low. Congratulations if you were right. I was in favor of strength. That's what I was in favor of, because a good trader is always in favor of strength. A bad trader is, what that's what a bad trader is. They talk about a bunch of nonsense bullshit that doesn't matter. A good trader is in favor of strength. So when I looked at strength, I was like, okay, strength is in favor of upside, right? So we have to look at strength from a structural standpoint. Strength was good. Strength is now broken. So what do we have as our last line of defense, or our last line in the sand if you're going to stay bullish? It's going to be the 50. You need to see price stay above the 50. So if we're going to sweep the 50, which is good potential, right? If we don't bounce here and then reject and then hit the 50 and then come up, which is kind of my thoughts. Usually it's a retest of trend. Once you get the retested trend, you then roll and then hold the 50 positive for price action. Slight deviation below previous price strength. I would like to ideally see it hold strength. But if you're going to see this in this scenario, I would say look at this market like this, as opposed to looking at it like it's just going to rebound here. Now, how could you look at this from a structural standpoint if you were bullish and you wanted to see some scenario where the market would become bullish? I would look for a recapture of strength, right? If we can get like a recapture of strength, then I would be, again, bullish again. But for now, trend is not in favor of upside at the moment. It's in favor of either chop sideways or some kind of recapture of price action. We just have to kind of see where price can go from here, because if you're going to roll up and roll back down, do you come back down and you revisit the lower prices, right? Do you come back down and you fill the wick, or do you bounce up here, come back down later and fill that? And that would be more in the favor of bouncing here, coming back down and filling that 50. If price were to come back down and sweep the lows, again, sweep the lows, ideally this is a structure I would look for. If you wanted to get bullish again and stay bullish again. Now, granted, I haven't unpositioned or repositioned any of my positions because I'm expecting a bounce. And if I start to see resistance, then I may cut some positions. But you would want to see price kind of recapture this mid-range, right? That's where you want to see price recapture. What is that mid-range? It's right in here. 64,699. You want to see price flip that. So I would say get to like 65.5, somewhere's in there. Probably roll back a little bit, hit price, and then bounce off that mid-range. That's ideally what I would be looking for. Other than that, I think structurally looking at this, from the way I'm seeing it at this point, is you have to kind of look at it like it's in a downtrend in a sense. So ideally something kind of like this at the moment is what I'm looking at from a structure standpoint. Not sweating too much, but I would say something like that at the moment would be kind of the ideal play here. So you do have the lower lows formed up top, which I wasn't expecting to kind of hold because I was looking at it more like a pennant. So you have your price action that's staying ranged. You have your price action that's trailing down. It's just, where does that trail end? Does it end down here? Does it end where it's at? Which is ideally where I'd like to see it end, because you got your body candles right here. So I'd like to see price close within this body range and then kind of shift back up from here. But I would say ideally, if you're looking to reposition, you're looking to do it above 64.9, 65K, somewhere in that range. If you're out. So if you're out and you're looking for a safe place to be DCAing back in, I would look for here. And then if price comes back down to the lows, ideally I would be looking for a reclaim of the wick. But again, do we reclaim the whole thing, or do we reclaim the 50% of the wick? I would ideally say probably the 50% of the wick, somewhere in there. So, if we're going to sweep, it's going to be probably in that 59, 58K zone. I think you were talking about that this morning, Snorlax, on price range. I wasn't sure, but 59, 58K is ideally where I'd be looking for a sweep if we're going to get one at all from here. This is the only place where you would be looking for a sweep too. You wouldn't ideally be looking for a sweep when you're above trend. That's just, it's nonsense. Always follow the trend. But now that we're below trend on RSI and on chart, now we can discuss lower pricing or what we can look at for a potential sweep. I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
I think that I'm kind of less in the camp that we're just going to sweep it. I really don't like the look of coming back down all the way to range lows within the context of the rally. So I'm kind of in the same camp that I'm at least going to be pretty cautious. Like, I'm not looking to catch a knife here. Like, there are plenty of assets on a discount, but I'm not really a buyer here necessarily unless we start to see some reclaims to the upside to show that strength. Otherwise, it has just been kind of repeated bleed. We spike, we squeeze on a lower time frame, and then we continue to bleed. And there's been a lot of built up short positioning that, if this market were really strong, definitely should have squeezed already at this point. I think the question is, right, like, is it going to continue to manifest in downside, or was this the market insiders front running some of this news that we're getting now? Obviously, we got some news about Germany selling last week. We're getting some news about Mt. Gox right now. You can argue maybe that's why we're selling off today. Maybe it's not. But if insiders were front running that price action, I think that would probably be the bullish scenario, right? That you've kind of already front ran the bad news. And I think that the kind of the flip side of that too is, maybe it hasn't quite been baked into the market to the same degree. So for me, I'm not necessarily a buyer down here, but I want to be bullish on a higher time frame. Well, I don't really love the fact that we've come back down all the way into range low rather than carving out a higher low within this range.
Yeah, it's not the most fortunate thing for price, but I will say you do have one thing in your favor, or in your lane, at least for now. And I think people need to always keep that in mind, and that's your strength, right? Strength is still above the 50 is still a bullish market. It's just when you start trending below that, then you have to ideally look at this from a different structural standpoint. So no capitulation from me. I'm just more or less just looking at where price can go and trying to give people realistic price ranges when they make sense, not when I hope that they'll go to a certain range like some people in the audience. So I would say also, in addition to that, if we go to the monthly, this is something else we discussed here. Monthly time frame, your lows have been set roughly above, look at that, above 60K by body candle, right? Body candles are all above 60K. Still holding above 60K. Hasn't been a single body close below 60K. Everything below, remember, keep in mind also, for those of you who actually trade and understand trading, anything within the wick category is more or less just noise. We don't consider that agreed upon price, right? Agreed upon price is only within the bodies themselves. All the other stuff outside of that is just noise. So closes are what matters, and the closes that matters are the body candle closes, not the wicks themselves. So all body candles, high time frame, have all been above 60K, roughly, for those in the audience. So if we get into Ethereum, it's a very similar structure. We start to see price move down into the lower ranges. I would say you get a retest of 28.2, somewhere on there, if you're going to get more breakdown from here. But ETH actually looks more bullish at the moment than Bitcoin. Again, trend is your friend. We don't hope. We actually pay attention to the trend. And ideally, I would say structurally, again, you're still in favor of more upside here. Ethereum could come down. And if it does come down, it comes down into the 50. And this actually looks more bullish than Bitcoin, oddly enough, right? But we'll see how this plays out. Ideally, I'd like to see a sweep of this 50 at this position. And then from there, I think we're good to go. We also have to keep in mind too, and I think not enough people are doing that, is look at your stochastic. It's also signaling that you're going to start trending, right? The stochastic is 100% signaling on all time frames within the weekly time frame or lower that you're going to start trending back up. And so I think people need to keep that in mind from that perspective also when looking at this, and understand that you can sit down here and wheedle, but you're going to eventually pop back to the highs. And I think that ideally is going to occur somewhere in here, right? Somewhere in here. If we can recapture the 50 or recapture trend, though, that would be positive for price too, and never visit the 50. That's always a possibility also. So I think people need to keep that in mind too with price action. So this is ideally what I'm looking at. Obviously, again, I follow body candles. I don't typically follow wicks. Wicks is just a lot of noise. You can wick into an area and pull back out, but could you have actually bought it? That's always the question, right? Body candle closes are your definitive price action between two price zones, above 60 on the monthly here and roughly below 71.5 here. This has been your entirety of your range. You do have a lower high forming now with 2 months consecutive. What I would like to see is price to come back up and start doing this and then kind of sweep towards that upper range. But I want to see, again, more body candles to do that. So I don't know what your guys' thoughts are on that specifically. I see people, again, in the comments say, the NVIDIA down 16%, guys. Yeah, short NVIDIA. Go put some puts in. Otherwise, shut up.
Look. This week this is a huge week, right? Like I think if we can bounce and maybe close this week a couple thousand points above here, that changes everything, right? But if this is, it's a significant week because it's also going to be more or less, I mean, it's going to be the June monthly close as well. I don't want to see like a bearish engulfing monthly candle for June. I think that sets us up for failure in July. So, I don't know. I mean, look, anything can happen, right? Everything looks really heavy until suddenly it becomes a swing fail, right? And we saw that. Will, you're looking at NVIDIA. If you were to maybe go down to like the daily time frame, Will, for a second, you were to go down to the day.
Well, yeah. I just wanted to point out this is over. Do you guys see this wick? Like this is freaking over. It is absolutely.
That chart looks good,
guys. I bought all the way up here. I'm down bad, right? I haven't been buying Bitcoin since all the way down here. Hold on, let me point this out for the Will's Outlook haters. I haven't been buying Bitcoin since all the way down here, so I'm down so bad at the moment, very bad. I just wanted to point that out for the audience. Extremely down because the markets have pulled down from 75K. It's destroying my portfolio, guys. All right. So you said you want to get into daily on this?
Yeah, maybe go to the daily for me and then zoom in, go to the left, like right down a little bit more, Will. So like right. Nope. The previous consolidation before that. So back in like August. Yeah, right there.
Right.
So I think that's a really contextually applicable range where we could look at Bitcoin and say, yes, how many people, including me, by the way, I've never traded NVIDIA, but I remember taking note to it because it was so hot at the time. How many people looked at that final stab down at the range low there for like right there? Yeah. Right there, Will. How many people were looking at that going, oh, it's time to backfill. You know, it's time to go down, right? Like it got a little scary because people recognized at that point the significance of NVIDIA to the broader stock market, how much it had gone up, and that the fact that it looked like it was a long range and it looked a little bit distributive, right? It looked really heavy until suddenly it didn't. Right. And I'll look at it. So I'm not necessarily saying it's a guarantee that Bitcoin does this fractal, but I think contextually it's applicable. It's very applicable. And I think it's worth keeping an eye on. And we'll see what happens, right? Like we will see what happens. But if this chart shows you anything right here, it's that when you have something that is in demand, and we're going to find out if Bitcoin is really truly in demand here very soon. When you have something that is in demand, like chips, like hopefully Bitcoin, it typically doesn't bode super well to get overly bearish into multi-month support. And that's what happened here with NVIDIA. People, and by the way, I've never traded it, but I was looking at it going, oh man, there's a big gap below us. We might fill that, right? I've never traded it, but I was observing it. It typically doesn't go super well to want to get bearish into multi-month support. So that I'm just going to continue to lean into that and go, we're at multi-month support. I don't think it makes a whole lot of sense to get overly bearish here. Like I remain high time frame bullish. I'm cautiously optimistic that we should hold here. And I guess if we don't, then we'll look to de-risk on a complacency shoulder, but I'm not going to look at this and, I'm not going to look at this and go, yeah, it's time to short into support. It's just, I don't like it here. It's uncomfortable, right? Like high time frame support is always uncomfortable, but I think it's premature. I think it's premature, but I'd love to hear from Jackus too. Jackus has some thoughts on this.
I mean, the question is, would you sell here? I mean, would you short here? And
Short.
if you would short here, then it's a good sell, I suppose. But if you wouldn't short here, then be careful doing so.
So allow me to ask you that question then, Jackus. I'd love to ask you that question. Jackus, would you be open to shorting Bitcoin right here?
No.
Why not?
I mean, yes, we are going to 40K.
No, don't do that. Don't do that. No, we got too many people watching. They respect you too much. They're going to scare some people. Someone just heard you say 40K and just tipped over in their office chair.
Don't jinx it, Jackus.
Look, Jackus, you know why we can't figure this out, man? Because we haven't been to the Ryan Christ show yet. For those of you who know Ryan Christ, he is an expert trader with his own trading show. He sells courses, books, and he came into the chat to tell us how bad we are at TA.
Who?
So I don't know who he is, but look, I'm just assuming. I'm assuming he has all these things going on for him because he's telling us how bad we are at TA. I love these people in the comment section. You guys are great, man. Well, most of you are. Some of you don't have fathers. Some of you lack some protein in your life, but most of you are good people. I will say that.
Jackus, I'd like you to, if you'd be so kind, to explain to me why you wouldn't short here. Or maybe you would.
Dr. Monster, I do want to get into volume, but I'll let Jackus go.
The thing is that I saw at 71.5K, which is the level I was talking about for a while. And I was saying wait for a flip of that level right before we get truly bullish, just like I was saying, for example, on BNB when we are trading at 200 to 220 range. Do not panic, do not get euphoric until one of those is flipped. The same thing is here. 71.5K is the range highs, and then 61, 60K is the range lows. We are right there. At 71.5, I was saying that the market is, I didn't like how slowly we were grinding towards it. Lots of people were opening up leverage longs. The sentiment was pretty bullish, and it just didn't feel right for a breakout there. I was calling for people to be cautious, to take some hedges, to take some profits. We dipped lower, and here we are at range lows, and suddenly people are bearish at the range lows. So I was previously anticipating this drop, but I was expecting we would probably bounce from the 64K area. We have not, and obviously we dropped a slightly lower. We have had some bearish news when it comes to the Mt. Gox news, which is now official after 10 years. Wow, that's crazy. After 10 years, it's official now that they'll unload it. Lots of that will be just OTC deals. So I think the market was kind of pricing that in regardless, even if those will be mostly OTC deals. I don't think that will hit open market. When it comes to the price itself of Bitcoin, I just, again, as I said many times, until the range lows is low. Essentially what you are doing, right? We are all just playing probabilities. Nobody knows the market move. Nobody is 100% correct. But I will say this over and over again, that so far I have not seen a higher time frame market structure break. I have not seen this cycle for prices to get extremely overbought. The EMAs are still lining up very nicely. So, I'll start to, and I mean, I said this many times, right? Like this is a good level to shove in. At the top, I was saying wait. Right now, I said it's a good time to shove in, and then if the support is lost, you expect 53K to be next. And I said I said this multiple times. So that's my current take. When I look at the market here locally, within the range, at the range lows, we see the fear floating around high. We see lots of people in frustration, depression. We see people that have been here, and I mean, this is huge, right? Like, we see people here from the class of 2017 that are leaving the market in frustration, and the class of 2017 was a big one, right? That was the class that joined the crypto market at the top, and they survived the first bear market, but probably missed lots of the bull market after, made lots of mistakes, round trip lots of the gains. It's been 7 years. These people stayed 7 years within the market, and the frustration is so big now that they are leaving it. And I've seen this from multiple people, right? And you usually do not get a cycle top with this kind of emotional position from the people. So I just have to stress this out a lot. Now, that doesn't mean that we, again, since we are here every day and people are stuck on the H1, right? Like, people cannot comprehend on the weekly time frame, I figured. But so that doesn't mean that, we cannot see like a sweep of the local lows once again. But essentially, I have not seen any signs of the market topping just yet. I'm ready to flip or like follow the levels as I always do. But essentially, I still think prices will be way higher going forward in a few months time frame. When I look at ETH, I still think that the 4K resistance is going to get smashed through. Prices are still higher than they were just a month or two ago. So with that said, you just gotta follow the price. And I hope that this message has been clear for what I was saying in the past weeks, right? So that's kind of my take, Max.
So, Max, you're muted first off.
Mic check.
Nope, still doesn't work. It's got a light. So as you were stating, Jackus, while he's trying to get his situation fixed, basically the market is sitting at range lows, right? And everybody's wanting to de-risk. Everybody's talking about de-risking or trying to look for reasons to de-risk. It actually shows the mute on the screen, Max, by the way. Nope, still can't hear you. So the market still looks like, or people keep discussing de-risking. What typically happens at the top when you're actually at a top? What do people tell you when you tell them the price is going to go down?
Sorry, once again.
So when you're at the top of a market and you're telling people this is probably the top, what do people typically tell you when you're actually at the top?
It's not. It's going way higher.
It's going way higher, right? I think people always forget this simple fundamental, right? Somebody will tell you it's going way higher. You'll hear discussions of super cycle. Nike, Amazon, everybody else, they're coming in to get fleeced, but they're also looking to fleece their customers. It's almost an atypical. This is for those in the audience, this is my third cycle. I believe this is also Jackus's third cycle. Like this is nothing new. It's a regular pattern for this market. When you're at the top, you'll know. People will absolutely tell you you're an idiot. Price is going way the hell higher. Blah 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 blah. And you top. It is what it is. Vol dropping. I heard this as far as discussion. Right. I saw somebody talking about this in the audience, and I think that this is. Can you switch it over to my screen since Max is having technical difficulties?
Oh, you're pulling them.
Yeah. But vol drop itself, as we discussed, right? Where are you going to see the highest vol you're typically going to see it around your low, which is going to be like right in here. And I think like this was your high vol here, right? And again, this was your high vol here. Because I keep hearing people discuss volume is low. Yes. Where was volume low going into the next market? Well, it was low all the way up until you got near what? Near the top. We're still low. We're still low. So you have to keep that in mind when you're looking at this and being like, okay, where can I find the comparisons of signals to look for or what to look for?
Well, I keep hearing people say volume this, volume that, but I have never seen anyone produce something of value when it comes to volume. All I hear is like people will be like, look at volume and market must be going down and then it rips higher.
Don't
so
you see
I
it?
feel that
Don't you see the volume?
The alpha and the volume, just looking at random bars.
Yeah.
People have no idea what they speak of when
they don't know how to
volume.
read volume. That's the thing. Like I always see a lot of people discuss volume, but if you say, hey, show me what you're seeing in the volume, it's kind of like that kid in class would be like, look, man, that stuff just doesn't work. Like, all right, well, you show me how you would do it. And then they just sit there because they don't have an answer. They have no clue. They're just saying it doesn't work because they don't understand it. They're not saying it doesn't work because they actually understand it. That's the difference.
It reminds me of one guy when we asked him how he does fundamentals, and he said, I've made multiple 100x's.
Multiple. I've made. Show me the TA. I've made multiple 100. Okay. All right. You're one of those.
What are you asking me? I know what I'm talking about. Don't ask me these stupid questions.
Don't ask me these stupid questions. Those are the best. Don't ask me those stupid questions. Why would you ask me something so dumb? Yeah, I think like, and you're probably like, well, you can't see it. Look, I'll do a replay just so you can see what I'm talking about. Look at the highest spike in volume here. Then you basically go dead, right? And then you get a high volume spike again right after. Before the market actually tops and completely destroys you. And I think like not enough people understand kind of the complexity of what volume actually means. Volume comes down to a low and it sits, right? And when it sits, then you get your ideal opportunity. If in worst case, let me explain this. I'm trying to think of like, you know, that show, like explain it to like a 5-year-old or explain it like a 5-year-old or forget what it's called or something like that. But somewhere's in that context. So volume dying, what is volume made up of? Snorlax, what is volume made up of? What two sides is volume?
Buyers and sellers.
Buyers and sellers. So if you have low volume, what does that tell you about buyers and sellers?
If you have what?
If you have low volume, what does that tell you about buyers and sellers?
Oh, I was watching the Bitcoin chart. I was like, why the hell is it moving so much on a higher time frame? Then I realized you were playing it back. But now I was about to say Bitcoin's going through it right now. Oh, man.
So buyers and sellers.
If you don't have a ton of volume, yeah, it usually means exhaustion. I see somebody pointing it out in the comments.
Means exhaustion, right? Yes, correct. Exactly. And we can see here, look, every time they watch the replay, every time they try to bring price below, what do? They slam it right back up. There's no interest really to sell or buy here. So when you have a low sell buy volume area of liquidity and strength is in your favor, what do you typically expect, Tommy, for the market to do for its next move?
If the volume is like,
if you have low participation, right, which is volume, if you have low participation, what does the market typically do from a range?
It usually will reverse depending on some other context. But I mean, we saw that with the bottom in, like you have circled right there. with the FTX bottom, obviously we had the huge capitulatory candle, and then participation was literally non-existent for about 3 or 4 weeks after that.
Yeah. So your participation so the market maker, so there's a market maker for everything. Think of it like that. There's a market maker for everything, even shitcoins. You now see them in shitcoins. They're more than willing to market make shitcoins because they know you people are in them, right? Including me. So because there's a market maker, they have to do what is called a mark up phase or a mark down phase, right? Those are the two phases you'll go through in a market. If we're in a mark down phase, we're going back into a bear market, right? If we're in a mark up phase, which I still believe we are, especially by a structure standpoint, you should look for price to be marking up again. So what should the market maker be doing from this range? Ideally, it should be marking up. Now, where does that up end? Could they come below 60K? Sure they could, right? Sure they could. But what are they doing every time they come below 60K? What are they doing there, Tommy, every time they come below 60K?
You hope they're accumulating, but we have to hope they're accumulating in this instance.
What does it look like they're doing right here when they try to come below 60K?
Well, so far the absorption's been good. The absorption's been good so far at this level, but I don't like the selling that we're seeing today and really over the last few days, man. I'm going to be honest. Like it doesn't really feel like selling as much as we got.
I think you're good, Max.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, it's way loud. Yeah.
Oh man, let's go.
Oh, you're good.
Like I question whether or not
we're
what we're
back.
seeing is de-risking more than actually selling. And so
I think
it is range low. I don't want to be too bearish, but also like, I don't love the momentum back down into the support level. I'm going to continue to say that I really don't like the momentum into this low.
Yeah, but we talked about how the market maker takes the upside, right? They're de-risking all the way up. That's just what they're doing. And so as the market gets higher and higher and higher, the market maker is de-risking more and more and more. And then eventually the market maker just takes a sidestep and says, all right, you guys run the show now. Because they've already de-risked to a certain point, and then the market starts to just slope back into a range, aka bear market. So keep that in mind. Vol low is actually a good place to be looking to, actually, in my perspective, from especially been this cycle. When I see low volume, it's a good place to actually take position. Because when you have low activity, it's the easiest to get in with low slippage. It means that the lowest participation is happening, which means that the likeliness of price action coming back and against you is very unlikely, especially when you're at range lows, right? Range lows being the current ranges between 71K and 61K, which are the current ranges. That's the way I would take this. Now, granted, some people will be like, oh, this or that or blah, blah, blah. That's all fine. That's all good. I think that looking at where price is, if they can break into the lower ranges, worst case scenario, we've talked about it, you might catch your 50 on your God candle there. That's it. That's the most I can see. But I think if you get body closes below this range, that's where things can get dangerous, right? You want to ideally hold this upper range that you're currently in, and from the body candles perspective on the monthly time frame. You start breaking that a monthly, you're screwed. The
danger to me is that we dump off the top without a complacency shoulder, because we've seen markets before, at least in crypto, go back and they've retested their highs. They've tried to enter price discovery, and when they rejected, they didn't really give you a complacency shoulder to exit on. So I think, like, for me, that's kind of in the camp where I'm at right now. Like, I need to see bulls step in here, or else you do see a rejection off the highs and, you know, we peel back. And in that scenario, altcoins obviously get decimated, but I don't think it breaks the bull trend. right? But it could occur in a way where the move is very quick and very painful. I have to imagine probably I'm sure alts would outperform in this hypothetical majors to the downside, but I think that you'd probably see more relative puking on majors in that scenario because their OI hasn't, like, it's had way more time to build up, right? Like Bitcoin's been in a range for 3 or 4 months, and it's still in a range until proven otherwise. But it does have, I think we're still probably near all-time highs, at least as far as open interest go for Bitcoin, historically speaking. ETH not quite as much, but you really haven't seen that ETH ETF trade fully unwind either. So if we keep breaking levels to the downside, then like I could see a scenario where the move off the top is very quick and doesn't really give you that high time frame confluence to be able to make decisions off of, right? If that makes sense.
It does. And Tommy, when you say like, okay, and here, let me show this. Okay. So I see what you're talking about. First of all, like, I don't think that this setup looks like it would give you the opportunity to get out. I think if it was like high time frame bearish, which by the way, I don't think it is, then you're talking about this, and then you would get a lower high like this. Okay.
Yeah.
That's what you'd get. But in the short term, I think where I agree with you, Tommy, is this was your high, and this was a really aggressive complacency shoulder. You may have already had that. Okay.
Yeah.
So if that was the case, then you do this. And then, you would eventually get a lower high. Okay. To be fair, I'm not expecting this. Okay. I'm not. I guess I could be wrong. I'm not expecting that. But I see what you're saying, Tommy. Like, in my opinion, this complacency shoulder may have gone 3,000 points higher than we would have expected. So it kind of looked like, it kind of looked like something it wasn't. Like a normal complacency shoulder, like it probably would have, like you wouldn't have seen this right here. Like it would have, this is kind of what you would expect a complacency shoulder to look like. If this is what you're saying, Tommy, like it would have been more like this, and then everyone would have been like, oh, it's a complacency shoulder,
Can you explain a complacency shoulder to me? Not for me, but to me. Like, this is for the audience's sake, by the way. Like, I'm 5.
Sure. Complacency shoulder. You have a clear trend, higher highs, higher lows. I'm showing you right here. You get a break of structure to the downside right here. Prime example. So you finally break structure. We'll make this red for downtrend. And then you print your first high time frame, or I guess any time frame, but higher time frame in this instance, lower high, right? So you can see clearly here that what happened. And then, this is obviously then another shift of trend. Then this would be a shift of trend right here, right? So then we go back to an uptrend.
You did also get the higher low there on the right too.
Yeah. So you can see, then you go back to uptrending. But this right here is like the cleanest complacency shoulder of all time, right?
It was the signal. It was the freaking, and I told a lot of people, I'm like, look, 48K, cut this shit. It's done. It's cooked. And that thing just ran it up and then fell right the hell over.
But why this doesn't feel, this still doesn't feel textbook distributive to me is because of, for example, we're looking at, this is like some of the cleanest, hindsight TA you can possibly do. This was like these distributions, they always have like a very clear trap, right? Mm-hmm. So look at this one, right? This was we'll just call this giga trap. Okay. This is your giga trap. Giga trap. All right. Now let's even go and take a look at the all-time high for Bitcoin, right? We had the same type of giga trap up here, right? And then when you lose it, it's ultra distributive, right? And that doesn't mean we can't pull back if we don't have a giga trap, right? But it just means typically when you get like a clean distribution, high time frame, one, contextually it makes sense. Two, you get a giga trap. Okay. And here we had, I'll relabel this right here. I'll just, we needed to say giga trap, right? You get this final like ultra giga trap. Okay. And at the same time, you get it to the downside as well. Like let's go look over here, right? This, and we'll take it from the closes, right? Because if we turn off the wicks, like this was your giga trap. I'll turn them back on, but you can see that like this was a final kind of capitulatory giga trap. Okay. So you can see that you get this typically, and then even here, right? Let's take a look at this one.
Well,
Look at this. Look at this right here, right? I mean, this is, you get these traps. So when I look at the price action here, I see it, it's different, right? Let me just erase this. We didn't have that here, right? Like we didn't have that final, if this was a top, we didn't do that, right? Like we didn't have that trap. Which for me is different, right? I would have expected a final like
Max.
liquidity generation event up here, giga trap, and
Max.
then down. Yes, go ahead, Jag.
At this point, it doesn't really matter what you show to the people. We are at the point where the market is very irrational and emotionally driven, and I see so much frustration and panic on the timeline today. And that's all this is going to be. Like, even at the bottom, it told people that there are bullish cases. They did not want to hear it, and they've just been full emotional. And if you tell them now that things are still, you present them with logic, but at some point I've learned that people do not want to listen to the reason or logic. They just are emotional, and that's one of these days. I mean, we can talk logic if the market bounces, right? So like they will get that emotional release, and it just needs like 2 days of where market just doesn't continuously bleed, then we can talk logic again. But right now, people will be very emotional and not able to comprehend logic.
Could you pull up volume and RSI on that, Max?
Sure.
Because I feel like those were in confluence with all those same ranges too. I mean, look at the low end range there, where you had that spike in volume to the low after the FTX crash, and then you had vol just kind of fall off a cliff, right?
Yeah.
At that low. And nobody wanted to bid that vol drop that was occurring there. And then in addition to that, if you were to run the RSI against all those highs, they were all showing bearish divs. And there's no bearish divs at our current ranges of what we're looking at.
I think the fact that it doesn't necessarily look distributive is because it's probably not the cyclical top, right? Like everybody, what's the, is it left translated or right translated to mean quicker? I don't even know, but I keep hearing people say that. And I kind of agree, right? Like to the extent that we've seen Bitcoin make it back to the highs sooner than any cycle previously. It is the quickest cycle that we've ever had. The caveat that I would add is that we maybe ran up to such a degree and so quickly that you could have a reflexive snapback off the highs, and it wouldn't surprise me. And I don't think if you had, like, say we do sell off from here, I don't think that definitively means that the cycle is over either. I would actually argue if you do get a deeper sell off, that would be more consistent with charts that there are literally crypto examples of this where we have retested an all-time high break, sold off, and it just ended up meaning that asset was way earlier in the cycle than we actually thought. I'm going to use Link as an example here. Link painted this exact same price action in 2020 off of a double top, and then proceeded to go 10x higher than the highs that it set during that double top. So I think it's like, if we sell off, to me, it's a product of us probably running up very aggressively in a very short period of time. But I think it also sets the stage for a much larger cycle than I think any of us are really expecting and prepared for. That's kind of my approach to it right now.
Tommy, how do you've talked quite a bit about the price action that you're seeing with NASDAQ companies, kind of looking in my opinion too, like comparable to what we're doing here. They spent a lot of time ranging. People kind of got shaken out, even just trading mega cap tech, and they're all breaking upwards right now. Like, what do you think about that still? Like, I know maybe that was a couple weeks ago, but crypto's still ranging despite it looking really heavy. And it would be a little bit atypical to see stocks melting up and I guess Bitcoin not following suit. So how do you feel about that?
Yeah, it's that's a little bit strange. I mean, I have to say, right? Like it's like you said, we have a ton of these equity tech stocks breaking out of multi-month ranges to the upside, and Bitcoin and ETH haven't been able to quite do that yet. I'm not ruling it out that this is just another retest of the range low, probably for that reason specifically. But yeah, I mean, we kind of just have to trade crypto for how it's behaving at the time, especially when it seems like we kind of have these we have a narrative that there's going to be more forced selling, but realistically what tends to happen is you just have Bitcoin front running risk off conditions and crypto in general. Like this has been kind of a theme for the last few years, right? You have Bitcoin show a little bit of weakness before equities if there is going to be any meaningful market downside. But I think to your point with NASDAQ, the most important stock in the equation right now might be NVIDIA, because I almost wonder if those NASDAQ stocks, they broke out, they floated up. We haven't seen that follow through yet, right? Like we've seen Apple break out, we've seen NVIDIA show a ton of strength, but a lot of these other stocks, they floated up probably on the premise that, you know, NVIDIA broke out, it's in a parabola. So if NVIDIA does start to hiccup here, I'm not saying that it will. And I'm also not saying that I would ever willingly short NVIDIA, because I think that's also pretty stupid. And I would say the options contracts are probably impossible to buy to make any meaningful money with. But if it is a case where you had a bunch of stocks kind of break out off the back of NVIDIA's strength and NVIDIA starts showing weakness, then I think, you know, you could open the door for that correction in equities. But I'm really like not that bearish on markets, right? Like if we get a snapback in crypto, I think it's probably more just driven by crypto type things, right? Like overeager positioning, beta to equities, et cetera, et cetera. But I don't think it changes the fact that we're likely very, very early to a bull cycle that won't top until like probably 2027.
Real quick, Snarks. So I just want to say, Bruegel, you're literally about one or two comments from getting banned from the Sun. You know
Who?
Like, go ahead, keep going.
Some audience guy. Just ignore him, Will. But yeah, no, I mean, I think that it's difficult for me not to, if Trump gets elected, I mean, it's kind of hard not to see a huge bull cycle during his presidency.
I'm banning him right now. That comment was out of line. See you, buddy. Goodbye. Everyone say bye to Bruegel. Bye, Bruegel. Everybody wave. Bye, Bruegel. Say bye. Everybody say bye, Bruegel. Sayonara. Okay. Sorry, Tom. You keep going.
I just think these are things that we've seen from assets in the past that have ran up to the highs really quickly, and maybe they just have that like reflexive correction within a much larger bull cycle. So, you know, we have a lot of NASDAQ charts that look super bullish, and maybe they break out, maybe they don't. I've kind of been the camp that it's really difficult to be bearish equities unless a lot of those charts just confirm really, really nasty deviations. But I also have to be cognizant of NVIDIA. If its parabola breaks, what does that do for markets? Even though that's not really my expectation. And I still think that within a higher time frame, like this, these are really hypotheticals, right? Because Bitcoin is still in the aforementioned 4 or 5 month range.
I mean, my hope
What
is
are you cooking up?
My hope is that we just kind of do something like Apple, you know, like this is the hope that we're doing this, honestly.
Well, NVIDIA does have the gap too. You got to keep that in mind also when looking at it.
I mean, sentiment on Apple was booty over here, man. Terrible. I remember all the sentiment, man. Every CT, not even CT, just like FinTwit, you know, like stock trader was just like, oh, Apple's doomed, man. Like, look at this. Like, we're about to break down here. I see similarity in the structure. Sentiments, you know.
Imagine if we are kind of repeating 25K too.
Yeah. I'm just pulling up NASDAQ companies that look good. What's another good one? Was Microsoft pretty good too? I don't even.
Microsoft's been basically in price discovery. Like,
yeah.
Google too. I think people are underestimating Google, and they've actually been doing a lot of changes. I've been watching their whole community notes shit that used to be like very politically driven are now starting to become a little more down to earth and make more sense. So that may actually drive price back up. I think they're realizing that, you know, trying to be politically driven doesn't make sense. So they're getting a little more technical with the science data and stuff like that. So I've been really paying attention. Like I think that Google has really been trying to like turn around a little bit on, you know, what they were putting out there as community notes for information.
Were they going too woke? Was it hurting their business?
It was destroying them, but I think that they're starting to get a little more factual and scientific, which is good.
So there was this period, for NASDAQ companies, right? Like, I could try to zoom out a little bit more. Like this, Microsoft over here looked heavy. Apple over, it was like March, April for equities. They all kind of had these like dips, you know, that they all sprung out of pretty damn hard looking back. So I don't know. I'm still conflicted, right? Because like Bitcoin's at support, sentiment's terrible. What's really throwing me off the most is ETH BTC, guys. Honestly, like ETH BTC is confusing the hell out of me because if Bitcoin was about to completely nuke, I'm sorry, like put your ETH ETF bias aside. Like if Bitcoin is gonna nuke, ETH is gonna nuke super hard, man. Like ETH is not a safe haven asset. I'm sorry, it's not. ETH loves to cheat harder than anything.
Nothing is a safe haven asset.
Nothing. Your only chance at outperformance relatively is just holding spot Bitcoin on a nuke, you know, and then you can rotate to alts. You don't get to just like chill and spot ETH and ETH beta and have it not break down when Bitcoin's about to nuke. That's never happened ever. That doesn't happen. That's not real life. So I'm continuing to look at altcoins and be like, Bitcoin is bluffing here. Unless it's a new paradigm, right? Unless it's just like the ETH ETF narrative is so strong that it's going to have a little bit of extra staying power. But I mean, who has ever been comfortable sitting in Ethereum when Bitcoin nukes? Has anybody ever been comfortable sitting in ETH and ETH beta when Bitcoin nukes? That's not real. That's not a real thing, man. ETH loves to punish you. So I don't know. I'm just looking at this and I'm like, man, like.
Well, truth be told, when BTC nuked, ETH BTC has done quite well. ETH BTC has not done well when BTC was going up, but even during FTX, ETH didn't make new bottom. But
that's true. Okay, that is true. That is true. You're right. That was an instance. That is fair.
Bro, man, stock splits piss me off because now my chart's all jacked up on NVIDIA.
No, I feel that, man. I keep, because I always quote previous instances of price action. I'm like, oh yeah, when NVIDIA was, and then I have to pause and stop myself because it's a completely different price than when I usually talk about it.
Well, if you notice too, they always shift it out of your price zone whenever they do the split. So like if you have like targets, like it's completely out of the fucking area now.
I mean, I just have to look at this and go, Bitcoin's just lagging. Like I just have to. I have to look at it. And by the way, we were watching earlier this year, we were watching the NASDAQ clearly lead what was happening in crypto earlier on in the year. We talked about that numerous times on this show. You know, we talked about it. So I don't know. I'm going to lean into this for now, right? Until it makes a fool of me and breaks. But NVIDIA is
at an interesting spot, though. Like, I think that if I could borrow the chart real quick, my shit's a little messed up, but it is what it is.
I think you nailed it, Delmox, by the way.
You what?
You nailed it there with the charts, with the stocks that BTC is leading. And we saw that at 25K too.
Let's go back and look at these. Let's see. We're cherry picking some companies, right? But I mean, they're the biggest companies in the world, some of them. So let's go back and look at it, right?
Zoom out a little more.
Zoom out more.
Yeah.
Hey, they're not on, bro. Mog is just saying.
Because when BTC was still at like 25, 31K, stocks were nearing their all-time highs already, and then BTC caught up. BTC started to run a lot. Equities did not do much. I mean, they started to go kind of up a little too, right? But not done that much. And now BTC is paused. Equities are running up higher again. I feel that's kind of going to be the take too.
Yeah. So I mean, even let's just cherry pick Apple, right? Like let's do this. Let's look at Apple. This is a pretty solid example, I think. So if we look at this time period, so this was the Bitcoin range that Jackus was talking about right here. Really frustrating, annoying, long range. I mean, Bitcoin was there forever, and we're like, when is Bitcoin going to do something?
Just like now.
So this is what Apple was doing while Bitcoin was in that range, right? Apple was doing this. So look at like when Bitcoin was chopping over here, Apple was going crazy. So let's look, we'll mark out the bottom. We'll do it right when Bitcoin was in the range. So it started right here. And then Bitcoin was right here. So when Bitcoin marked up to this level and then just chop, you can see that Apple was, it really started more like right here, right? But whatever, you get the point. On its way to a new all-time high. Obviously, it got up there, a few months later. But while Apple, was up there, Bitcoin was just chop. So maybe, I don't know, there's some relationship, right? I mean, and then we could even go and do something like this. We go Bitcoin USD divided by NDX. See how the Bitcoin NASDAQ pair looks. Maybe there's some signal in this.
I think
I don't know what this is.
I'll let you cook, and then I'll add my context to this conversation.
Yeah, I mean, this is interesting, actually. Let me see if this is maybe my eyes are playing a trick on me. Let me just look at this. So Bitcoin down below, make it orange for Bitcoin. We'll mark out all Bitcoin's previous cycle highs right here, just Bitcoin USD. Oops. All right. And then right here. Now I'm going to move this up so we have more room to draw. There's Bitcoin. And then up top, we have Bitcoin NASDAQ. So this might look similar, right? But actually the timing of it is quite different. So let me now mark out the all-time high breaks for Bitcoin NASDAQ for when Bitcoin really started to outperform the NASDAQ. Obviously, this chart going up, this top chart is, if it goes up, Bitcoin's outperforming the NASDAQ. If it goes down, the NASDAQ's outperforming Bitcoin, right? So now let's mark out previous all-time high breaks on the pair, right? To see if there is a lead and a lag to it at all. So now let's mark out when Bitcoin USD broke above the previous high. So right there, BLX has it there. Bitcoin USD broke it there. And then we broke it here. So you can see that as Bitcoin actually breaks above, Bitcoin USD actually breaks above its previous cycle all-time high, there's still, quite a gap on the Bitcoin NASDAQ pair that needs to be filled in. See that? So again, right here, Bitcoin makes a new high, and then there was a bit of a gap right here that needed to be filled in. See, the Bitcoin NASDAQ pair wasn't right there yet. Continue to move this forward. Bitcoin USD makes a new all-time high, and Bitcoin NASDAQ is still significantly under the all-time high for this pair. So this does indicate concretely that there is a lag where before Bitcoin really goes into price discovery, the NASDAQ actually outperforms it kind of at this critical inflection point. And then it plays a really fast game of pickup. So, maybe it's just a matter of waiting. NASDAQ looks good. If it keeps looking good, this is what we have seen before, actually. So,
Hey, Max, could I borrow the chart real quick?
Sure.
So somebody asked in the comments why we are so bullish that Bitcoin would move up after the halving. Because that's what it does. It's what it does. Will there be volatility in the range? Sure, there'll be volatility. This is every halving marked out. Halving 1, up only, right? Halving 2, up only. Halving 3, up only. Halving 4, it's gonna be up only. Like I can't make it any simpler. I know you may be like, oh, this isn't up only though. We're chopping the range. That's what we're doing. So just understand, like you're gonna have some volatility after the halving, sure, as you did here and here. That's what you're having here. I mean, look at this right here and look at this right here. Tell me the difference. Tell me the difference. And ultimately, look at how high Bitcoin went from here, right? Look at where we are right now. If we do what Bitcoin did here, you got an immense amount of upside. From a high time, I'm high time frame, just for the audience's sake. I'm not 1 hour, H4, H1, none of that stuff. I'm obviously very high time frame weekly. I'm looking at the perspective of where we are and where the market has typically gone, where we are, and where I think the market will go. And this has been every single cycle. It's never not once been this scenario. Not one time has it not been this scenario. So if we want to go by data and data points, ideally people should expect a lot more upside.
Well, I feel like it'd be better to go by solely emotions rather than data points. So maybe we could just go off of emotions if you're cool with it.
Emotions over numbers.
Yeah, I would just ignore the data and let's just be emotional. You know what I mean? I feel like that's kind of the move.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
all this data and the evidence is nice and all, but imagine panic selling support. How much nicer that would be. Imagine.
Yeah, I mean, I could be one of those people, but I drink milk in the morning. Which
imagine how nice it would feel, Will, to like panic sell 60K and then buy back 80K. You know what I mean? Like how nice that would feel.
Yeah.
It always feels the same because people keep on doing that.
But like there's no better feeling than like just getting out of it and just selling at a bad time and then buying at a really good time. And then
when everybody else is buying?
Yeah.
You have to buy when everybody else is buying. When your neighbor's telling you about Bitcoin.
I think I'm gonna wait for Iggy Azalea to drop her next shit coin, and then I'm gonna start buying Bitcoin. I think that's a good signal. Yeah.
So my risk on signal is when my fiance's dad starts buying XRP.
Yeah, and for the audience's sake, this is not me bashing. This is just me providing data. That's it. That's all I'm doing. I'm just providing you numbers, showing you historically how this has worked out and how I think it will work out again. Granted, and keep in mind too, I gave room for diminishing returns. I did. I actually lowered this cycle top to give diminishing returns so that way you can see that I'm being fair to bears.
Well, I'm gonna steal the chart back, bro. I want to expand on what you're doing here because this is a good point. So up top, I've got Bitcoin. Down below, I've got SPX, and then I've got the Bitcoin halvings, which Will was just talking about. So second, third, fourth. Something interesting to note here, which is its confluence for what we were just looking at, which was how the NASDAQ actually leads Bitcoin a little bit. This is SPX. So again, it's bundle the biggest and the best companies here in the US, okay? Something interesting is that SPX has actually gone on. Look at the red boxes. SPX has actually gone on after each Bitcoin halving to make an all-time high, while Bitcoin is still kind of chopping well underneath, and we're actually up close, right? But Bitcoin is not in its parabola yet, but you can see that stocks are actually, performing better than Bitcoin right after Bitcoin halving. And then that's when we begin to see that balancing act happen. So just kind of a little interesting find, right? Because that's the big discussion. I'm like, what's going to happen here? Why are stocks performing so well and crypto's not? Well, I'm going to continue to lean into this, right? Stocks historically have led Bitcoin, at all these high time frame pivots. Here's the evidence. Will showed you the evidence. I showed you the evidence. Jackus, he didn't show you, but he agreed that that's what it is. And it's most likely a high time frame kind of correction, chop solidation in a larger cycle, and we are expecting higher prices later this year, right? And I think all of the evidence that you need at this point is what's happening in the stock market, and the fact if you just look at the Bitcoin halvings, what typically happens after pullback, chop up, big pullback, then we go up, rally into it, right? Look at what's happening right now. Garbage price action. So I don't know. I mean, maybe we could go deeper, I suppose, but it is kind of shaping up like what we've seen before almost every single time. So
yeah, and I think that's important for context. This is exactly why I was expecting sideways price action even when we hit 75K originally for like 3 to 4 months. I was like, we're probably just going to chop this range. I didn't know where the bottom was until it was formed. And I was like, we're probably just going to run sideways on this. And that's exactly what we did. I think that looking at this, though, and looking at where Bitcoin is right now with price, it's acting like it did at all these other inflection points at the mid-range.
Yeah.
So that makes you really question how high can this expansion phase go when Bitcoin does go up? Will it go the same as it did all previous cycles? If that's the case, we're going a lot higher than what people are anticipating. Not depreciated cycle. Like we're going way higher, because if I were to take the midpoint and place it over where we are right now, and I take any one of those price points from previous cycles and place it as we're going to expand the same amount from where those other ones did from the halving, that's a 250K Bitcoin. That's a 200K Bitcoin. It's not a 100K Bitcoin like everybody's saying.
Also, important to mention that 30% of the S&P 500 consists of the top 5 companies.
What were you saying?
I was looking forward who's going to talk first. That
I was like, the hush fell over the crowd.
I was just reading the comments.
I was saying that it's important to mention that the 30% of S&P 500 is made up of just 5 companies. The ratio.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, we talked about it. I think you pointed this out before we discussed it. I think that's important for context, and it's the reason like these, too big to fail companies exist, and they'll always exist because they're not going anywhere. These companies are not going ever in bed with the government and everything else because they're too big to fail. I did want to point out too, Michael Bojalian. There is no WAGMI. 99.9% of people are going to ride this thing right back down when it does stop. There's zero WAGMI. Like I know we come in and we talk about bullish markets because we're bullish on the market, but there's no WAGMI. Like when I feel there's a top, I don't give a shit how much you sit there and cry about it and tell me how it's not going to top and we're in a super cycle and blah blah blah. I'm gonna voice myself. It's just how I am. I don't care about anybody's feelings because feelings and data do not align. They never align.
Are you guys familiar with the Peel multiple?
Show me.
Metric? I can't actually.
What do you mean you can't?
I can't.
Jackus, come on.
You can't.
Come on,
I don't
chef.
want
I'm
to.
hungry. I'm starving,
But,
Jackus. Feed me. Come on, chef. Let's go.
in a very short term, it's like it kind of follows the minor capitulation, and it's at levels when Bitcoin was trading at 16K. That's how oversold this market right now is. People are not following the broader picture, but it's facts. And I remember that we said we are not going to cover facts anymore today because the market is emotional today. Everyone is hating on each other, spitting emotions on each other. So let's keep it there.
I'm gonna find the Peel multiple. I'm gonna find it right now, and I'm gonna pull it up because you won't do it, and I'm hungry, so I need to see it.
So
I'm gonna feed myself. Okay.
I saw
He was like, I'm gonna find it and I'm gonna show it.
I'm gonna show it. I'm gonna expose the Peel multiple, whether Jackus wants me to or not. I'm gonna do it.
I saw an interesting comment. I think it's something interesting worth talking about. Rio Diver. Nvidia's market cap is $1 trillion, but look at their revenue. Look at Apple's market cap and look at their revenue. That's all I can tell you. If you think Nvidia's market cap to revenue is skewed, look at Apple, and make sure you include loss. Make sure you include defective products, so on and so forth, and look at Apple. Extremely overpriced. Extremely overpriced. The market doesn't care. The market's going to be.
This is what you're talking about, Jackus? I'm sorry, Will. I just wanted to touch on this. This is what you were talking about, Jackus? The Peel multiple?
Yeah, basically.
Basically? Is it the wrong one?
Oh, it's the one. It's just it's the one.
It's an interesting pattern, right? So you kind of see like in the bear market, right? So here's Bitcoin. Let me reset this a little bit. So in the bear market, right at Bitcoin USD bottoms, I'll remove this. So Bitcoin USD bottoms right here. Peel multiple sets a low. Bitcoin starts to rally, Peel multiple rallies, then it sets a higher low. Same thing over here. Low, Bitcoin rallies, sets a higher low, then bull market. Bear market, Peel multiple sets a low. Bitcoin's at a low, it rallies, then it prints a higher low. So maybe that's the pattern. I don't know.
No, I like it. That's a good data point.
How dare you exposing this, Max?
I didn't do shit. Will's chart is up. I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't do shit.
Well, I mean, if we're getting a Will's chart, no, that's plan. But no, I do want to point out though too, the same things we talked about with halving and so on and so forth. You get a very similar type of play here on the RSI. So just think about that for a second when you're sitting here talking about the market's top, boys. The market's topped. We're right here where we need to be. Now we just got to kind of veer off of this and run it back up, essentially.
Well, guys, speaking of running it up, we've been going for an hour, 40 minutes.
We didn't say anything about likes. What does likes look like?
We didn't say one thing about likes, guys. We didn't say one thing. We got 242 without even soybeaning it today, guys. Maybe during the outro, you guys can get us to 300 likes. I feel like that would be cool. That would be cool.
Maybe we just put in the soybeans now, Max. When Tommy does the outro, we put in the soybeans just for the giggles.
No, they want the soybeans. No soybeans for them today.
No, they like their obscure commodity futures now, man.
Tommy, take us out, brother.
Yeah, I'll take us out. You guys rock today. 250 likes, basically, without us mentioning the like button a single time. I am pretty impressed by that. So shout out to you guys, the audience, for showing up today on a day where obviously the bulls did not. So we will see how this dump continues to transpire right here over the next few days. But some housekeeping notes, of course, guys, a reminder that we have launched our brand new hedge fund, BB Wealth Management, that is run by the BB team. And as I always say, guys, it is done so in a way, well, for starters, it's a long short fund, so it is capable of trading both directions, but it's operated in a way that takes into account crypto's historic propensity for upside, as well as the investment risk posed in any market. So if becoming an LP or becoming an accredited investor is something that interests you, we do have more details linked in the description below. And we are very excited that we can finally bring this to you guys. As I've said, it's something that we've been working on basically since the inception of BB. So, not just that we can begin trading it and operating it right, but also that we can potentially give you guys the opportunity to be invested in it as well. So like I said, if that is something that interests you, we have more information linked in the description of this video. You reach out to us on email. We can hopefully answer any and all of your questions. But not to forget the BB Academy, guys. Currently retailing for about $4.99. I think that is tremendous value given what you are able to acquire through the BB Academy, right? Which is we have a very diverse team. Like I said on Friday, I mean, I trade very differently than Jackus and Will, and Max trades very differently than Tucker and Wabi, but we all bring very different skill sets and very valuable skill sets to the table. And ultimately, the BB Academy does a great job of kind of capturing all of that together into a very high quality educational base. So if acquiring something like that is something that interests you, we do have more information linked in the description below. I do think that it will be worth having here over the next few months, regardless of what happens here on a lower time frame. But not to forget our programming, guys. If you enjoyed Market Check enjoyer, regular, whatever you want to call yourselves, we will be back for another episode, of course, tomorrow morning. I'm looking forward to seeing where the market exactly is trading by tomorrow morning, given the amount of volatility we've already had this week. So make sure to tune in for that. We'll cover all of what's happening with Bitcoin, ETH, and of course equities as well. Typical start time around 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Not to forget Market Talk with the legendary King Wabi. I'm sure he's going to have a great space today as well. So if you're looking for an afternoon fix after Market Check, maybe you just want a little bit of clarity, commentary on the market, make sure to tune in for Market Talk with Wabi. I'm sure he'll have some great guests on later today to discuss it. But that's it from us, guys. We hope you enjoyed the show today. Let's see what the market gives us. And y'all have a great rest of your week. If we don't see you again, I hope we do. It's only Monday, but if not, y'all have a great rest of your week. And of course, as always, stay safe.